She won't say it out loud, but the moment you tolerate this, something inside her quietly shuts off. And once it's gone, no amount of love, effort, or apologies will ever bring it back the same way again. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is something most men never realize until it's too late. I'm not speaking to you as someone trying to impress you. I'm speaking to you as a woman who understands how women think beneath the surface, and as a psychologist who has watched thousands of relationships quietly break, not from betrayal, but from something far more subtle. Respect isn't lost in one dramatic moment. It fades in silence. It disappears in the small things you let slide, the things you convince yourself are not a big deal. You think love is enough. You think being patient, being understanding, being the bigger man will make her value you more. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you tolerate behavior that disrespects you, you don't look strong, you look uncertain. And uncertainty in a man doesn't inspire love, it quietly erodes attraction. A woman may care about you deeply, she may even love you. But if she senses that you don't have boundaries, something instinctive begins to shift. She stops seeing you as someone she can lean on, and starts seeing you as someone she can push. Not because she's evil, not because she's trying to hurt you, but because human nature, especially in attraction, responds to strength, clarity, and self-respect. Let me show you how this really plays out. It starts small. Maybe she cancels plans last minute, and you say, "It's okay." Maybe she speaks to you in a way that feels slightly disrespectful, and you laugh it off. Maybe she stops putting in effort, and you compensate by giving more. You tell yourself you're being patient, mature, understanding, but what she feels is different. She feels the absence of consequence, and when there's no consequence, there's no reason for her behavior to change. This is where most men get trapped. Because you've been taught that love means tolerance, that being a good man means accepting flaws, being forgiving, being easygoing. And yes, those qualities matter, but not at the cost of your self-respect. Because the moment you communicate through your actions that you will accept anything just to keep her, you unconsciously lower your value in her eyes. And this is the part that hurts the most. She won't sit you down and say, "I'm losing respect for you." Instead, you'll feel it, in the way she stops listening as closely, in the way she challenges you more, in the way her tone shifts, just slightly, but enough for you to feel it in your chest. And you'll try harder, you'll give more, you'll become more patient, you'll suppress your frustration because you don't want conflict. But every time you ignore what bothers you, every time you choose comfort over truth, you send her a message: my boundaries don't matter, and if they don't matter to you, why would they matter to her? Respect isn't built on how much you give, it's built on what you're willing to walk away from. That's the paradox most men never understand. You think holding on tighter will make her stay. But sometimes, the very thing that makes a woman value you is knowing that you won't tolerate being undervalued. And this doesn't mean becoming cold. It doesn't mean becoming aggressive or controlling. It means becoming clear about what you accept, clear about what you don't, clear about the kind of man you are with or without her. Because a woman can feel when a man is afraid to lose her, and fear, no matter how well you hide it, changes how you behave. It makes you hesitate. It makes you overthink. It makes you accept things that quietly break you just to keep the peace. But peace built on self-betrayal is not peace at all. It's slow emotional erosion. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to reverse. So if something inside you has been feeling off, if you've been telling yourself, "This isn't how I want to be treated," don't ignore that voice. Because that voice, that's your self-respect trying to wake you up before she loses something in you that she can never truly respect again. What you tolerate doesn't just change how she treats you, it changes how she sees you. And once that perception shifts, everything else begins to follow. You have to understand something most men overlook. Attraction isn't just about how much she likes you, it's about how she experiences you. And that experience is shaped by your standards, not your words. Not your promises, your standards. A woman can hear you say, "I deserve respect," 100 times. But if your behavior says, "I'll stay no matter what," she will believe your behavior every single time. This is where the real damage happens. Because when you tolerate things that go against your values, you slowly disconnect from yourself. You become less decisive, less grounded, less certain. And she feels that. You might think you're hiding it well. You might think you're staying calm, staying composed. But internally, something starts to fracture. You begin second-guessing your reactions. You start wondering if you're overreacting. You suppress what you really want to say, just to avoid tension. And here's what that creates. A dynamic where she leads emotionally, and you follow. Not because she's trying to dominate you, but because you've stepped out of your own authority. And when that happens, respect doesn't disappear overnight. It gets replaced with familiarity, replaced with comfort, replaced with a subtle sense that she can predict you. And once she can predict that you'll always stay, always forgive, always adjust, the edge that created attraction begins to fade. Let me make this even clearer. Imagine two versions of you. One man speaks calmly, but firmly, when something doesn't sit right with him. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't argue endlessly. He simply states what he accepts and what he doesn't. And if that boundary is ignored, he creates distance. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. Now imagine the second man. He notices the same behavior. It bothers him. He feels it in his gut. But instead of addressing it, he rationalizes it. She's just stressed. She didn't mean it. I don't want to make a big deal out of this. So he stays quiet. He adjusts. He tolerates. Now tell me honestly, which man feels more grounded? Which man feels more stable? Which man feels like someone you instinctively respect? That's exactly how she experiences it too. Because respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you demonstrate through what you refuse to accept. And here's where it gets even deeper. When you tolerate behavior that crosses your boundaries, you're not just teaching her how to treat you, you're teaching yourself what you're worth. Every time you stay silent when something bothers you, you reinforce a belief, this is okay, even when it's not. And over time, that belief becomes your reality. You stop expecting better because you've trained yourself to accept less. This is why some men feel stuck in patterns where they keep attracting the same kind of treatment over and over again. It's not coincidence, it's conditioning. Now, I want you to hear this without defensiveness. Sometimes, the reason a woman loses respect isn't because she changed, it's because you stopped holding the line on who you are. You became more available than necessary, more agreeable than authentic, more focused on keeping her worth than staying true to yourself. And that shift, no matter how subtle, changes everything. Because a woman doesn't just connect with your kindness, she connects with your backbone. She feels safe when you're kind, but she respects you when you're grounded. And without respect, attraction struggles to survive. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to play games or pretend to be indifferent. You need to return to something much simpler and much more powerful. Your standards. What do you actually accept in a relationship? What feels right to you? What crosses the line for you? Most men can't answer these questions clearly, and that's exactly why they end up tolerating things that slowly break the connection. Clarity creates strength, and strength creates respect. So the next time something feels off, don't rush to dismiss it. Pause. Pay attention. Because that discomfort you feel, that's not weakness, that's awareness. And if you keep ignoring it, you won't just lose her respect. You'll start losing yourself in the process. There's a moment in every relationship, quiet, almost invisible, where a woman decides how far she can go with you. She won't announce it. She won't even be fully conscious of it. But she feels it. And that moment is created by how you respond the first time your boundaries are tested. Not the 10th time, not after things get worse, the first time. Because that's when she's learning who you really are, not the version you present when everything is easy, but the man you become when something doesn't feel right. This is where most men make the mistake that costs them everything. You hesitate. You feel that internal discomfort, that small voice saying, that didn't sit right with me. But instead of trusting it, you override it. You tell yourself it's not worth addressing. You tell yourself you'll bring it up later. You tell yourself you don't want to ruin the mood. And in that moment, you teach her something. You teach her that your boundaries are flexible, not because you said it, but because you showed it. And once a boundary is shown to be flexible, it rarely gets taken seriously again. Now here's the part that might challenge you. When you finally decide to speak up, after weeks or months of tolerating the same behavior, you expect her to suddenly understand, respect it, and change. But from her perspective, this is new, because you trained her to believe it was acceptable. That's why she might seem confused. That's why she might push back. That's why she might say, "Why is this suddenly a problem?" And that reaction frustrates you, because in your mind, it's always been a problem, but you never made it real. You never made it clear, and clarity delayed becomes confusion. This is why timing matters more than intensity. You don't need to explode. You don't need to build resentment and then release it all at once. You need to address things early, calmly, and without emotional chaos. Because a man who waits until he's overwhelmed loses his power in the moment. He speaks from frustration, not from grounded clarity. And frustration can be dismissed. But calm certainty, that's different. That's felt. Let me give you something practical. When something crosses a line for you, you don't need a speech. You don't need to justify yourself endlessly. You simply acknowledge it directly and without aggression. Not to control her behavior, but to express your standard. Because your job is not to force respect. Your job is to embody it so clearly that anything misaligned becomes obvious. And here's where it gets uncomfortable again. Sometimes, even when you do everything right, she won't adjust. She'll continue the behavior. She'll test you again. She'll see if your words actually mean anything. And this is the moment that defines everything. Because if you speak, but don't act, your words lose all weight. Respect isn't built on what you say once. It's built on what you consistently uphold. That might mean creating distance. That might mean pulling back your time and attention. That might even mean walking away. Not as a threat, not as a tactic, but as a decision. Because when a woman realizes that you are willing to remove yourself from what doesn't align with you, something shifts. She no longer sees you as someone who will stay no matter what. She sees you as a man who chooses, not a man who clings. And that distinction changes everything. Now understand this clearly. Walking away doesn't guarantee she'll come back, and that's exactly why it holds power. Because it's real. Because it's not manipulation. It's self-respect in action. Most men are afraid of this moment, afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone, afraid that if they don't tolerate certain things, they'll end up with nothing. So they stay. They accept. They shrink parts of themselves just to keep the connection alive. But what they don't realize is the connection they're trying to preserve is already weakening. Because respect is the foundation, and without it, everything else becomes unstable. Love becomes inconsistent. Communication becomes strained. Attraction becomes unpredictable. And you're left wondering what changed, when in reality, it wasn't one big moment. It was a series of small moments where you chose silence over truth, comfort over clarity, tolerance over self-respect. And the longer that pattern continues, the harder it becomes to rebuild what was lost. But here's the part you need to hold on to. It's not permanent. As long as you're willing to see it and change how you show up, you can shift the dynamic. Not by controlling her, but by finally standing in who you are without apology. Because the moment you stop tolerating what breaks your self-respect is the moment you give her a reason to respect you again. There's something you need to understand, and it might be the hardest truth to accept. Not every woman who loses respect for you will say it, and not every woman who loses respect will stay. Some will slowly disconnect while still being there. Some will become colder, more distant, harder to reach. And some will leave without ever explaining what truly changed. And you'll sit there, replaying everything in your mind, wondering where it went wrong. But now you know, it wasn't one big mistake. It was what you allowed to repeat. Respect doesn't collapse in chaos, it fades in patterns. Patterns of you ignoring what you feel. Patterns of you choosing peace over truth. Patterns of you convincing yourself that it's not that serious, when deep down it is. And here's the shift that changes everything. You don't rebuild respect by demanding it. You rebuild it by becoming a man who no longer negotiates his self-worth. That starts with something very simple, but very uncomfortable. Honesty. Not honesty with her first. Honesty with yourself. Where have you been tolerating things that don't sit right with you? Where have you been shrinking just to keep someone? Where have you been silent when you should have been clear? Because until you answer those questions honestly, nothing changes. And once you do, your behavior begins to change naturally. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop trying to earn basic respect. Instead, you operate from a different place. You give your time and energy, but not at the cost of your standards. You listen, but you don't ignore your own voice. You care, but you don't abandon yourself in the process. And this is where something powerful happens. The dynamic shifts, not because you forced it, but because you changed what you tolerate. Because the truth is, people don't rise to your expectations. They respond to your boundaries. If you accept inconsistency, you'll receive inconsistency. If you accept disrespect, you'll experience more of it. If you accept being an option, you'll be treated like one. But when you start aligning your actions with your standards, the wrong behaviors either adjust or they leave, and both outcomes serve you. Now let's address the fear that's probably in your mind. What if I lose her? That fear is real. But here's the truth most men avoid. If being yourself and holding your standards causes you to lose someone, then what you had wasn't built on respect to begin with. And without respect, it wouldn't have lasted anyway. So you're not losing something solid. You're letting go of something unstable. And that creates space for something better. Or at the very least, it reconnects you with yourself. Because at the end of the day, the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you don't respect your own boundaries, no one else will feel compelled to. If you don't listen to your own discomfort, no one else will take it seriously. And if you keep choosing others over yourself, you will always feel like you're losing something, even when they stay. So this is your turning point. Not a dramatic transformation, not becoming someone you're not. Just a decision to stop tolerating what slowly breaks you, a decision to speak when something matters, a decision to walk away when your standards are consistently ignored. Because that's what grounded men do. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what rebuilds respect over time, without force. Now I want to leave you with something personal. Think about your current situation, or even your past. What is one behavior, just one, that you know you've been tolerating, even though it doesn't sit right with you? And be honest with yourself. Are you keeping it because it's healthy, or because you're afraid of what might happen if you stop accepting it? I want you to write your answer in the comments, not for anyone else, but for yourself. And if this made you see something you couldn't see before, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this, because sometimes the truth we avoid the most is the one that changes everything.